Alright, so here's some new colors, new techniques that we're going to talk about with colored pencil. First is the overlapping technique, which is blending colors over one another to create a completely new color. Second technique is the second section here, which is dealing with gradient, which is basically just a color value scale. So you're slowly adding color pressure to create a color value scale from light to dark, just like we did with a pencil. The warm gray technique, which is going to be done here, is coloring lightly with black in the shaded area, then overlapping the color, creating a shaded version of the hue. The burnishing technique is something that you work on with using pressure to mix overlap colors or using a colorless blender to soften where colors overlap one another. We're not going to use the colorless blender for this exercise, but we will as we go forward. And then, of course, the definition of intensity is the visual strength of a color achieved by the amount of pressure used when coloring. So, Section 1. Using the overlapping technique, apply two hues in the outer edges of the rings and on the inside, blend the two together. Do this with medium pressure. So what I want to do here is use two colors that I don't know what I'm going to create. So I just grabbed four random colors, and with medium pressure in this section, I'm just going to put this brown in. And again, I want to use a darker color first when I'm overlapping colors. So I'll put this brown color in, medium pressure, try to get it nice and neat. And on the outer edge of this one, I'm going to use this color here and just do the same thing. So I don't want to use colors that I know what I'm going to create when I overlap them. I don't want to use red and yellow because I know that's going to create orange. Any of the prismatic colors, we've already done that mixing, so we know what colors we're going to get. So in here, I'm just using this magenta color, and over the brown, medium pressure, I'm just creating this new, different color here in the middle. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. All right, just putting in this blue. Next section, this is the gradient technique. Now I can use any color that I want to on this. So I need to use the gradient and warm gray technique. Gradient, warm gray. In the ellipse on the left, which is here, use any color opposite the light source and create a color value scale showing transition. So how do I know where the light source is? Well, I can tell where the light source is by where the cast shadow is. So that means the light source is coming from this side. I want to do the same thing I did when I did the sphere in the value exercise and create a zero value with light pressure. I'm creating that zero value right in there. Light pressure, creating that elliptical space, and then I'm going to work my way out. Now this is all light pressure. As I work my way down towards the darkest area here, I'm going to slowly increase pressure. Again, this is a lot to do with how you control the pencil in applying values in color. So as I work my way out, I'm going to slowly increase pressure, what I have from the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then by the time I get down here, I want to use the intense version of that color. So opposite the light source here, so it's going to be darkest. And then I can decrease pressure on my way out to blend it together. So if I just do this to here, that's not enough of a gradation. All right, that's not enough of a gradation because it jumps too quickly from this color to that color. So I really have to control what I'm doing in here and increase pressure down here so it's solid and intense, following the contour of the form, and then I'm going to increase pressure up against that and then decrease pressure as I work my way out. to create a smooth transition in that color value. Sometimes using the colored pencil this way with small circles while I'm following the contour will give me a smoother blend. Since the color stick inside the wood is smooth and soft, it'll create a nice blend. You can see I'm slowly building from the darker version into the lighter version. And I got to go all the way up against the edge here with that 0 value transitioning into the 1 value, and then the 2, 3, 4. And in the cast shadow area, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the black and put the cast shadow in with a little bit of black gradation as I work my way off of the form and just transition that black gradient to get a little bit lighter out there. It's always going to be darkest directly under the form. Okay? Now, the warm gray technique says apply a little black on the ellipse on the right. Apply a little black lightly at the bottom of the shape, opposite the light source. Now, in this case, the light source is coming from the top left. So the warm gray technique is exactly that. I'm putting light pressure with the black on the form first. I can't put the color down yet. I have to follow the form as well. And I'm putting a slight gradation of that black transitioning out. Now when I go over it and blend, I need to do the same thing I did on this side by creating the 0 value first based on the highlight. All right, so the 0 value has to be elliptical based on the shape of the form. And then I'll work my way out from the 0 value into the 1 value, 2, 3, 4, and when I get to this, I'm overlapping and burnishing, pressing hard with the overlap colored pencil, creating that shade of green, and blending the two together. And now I need to increase pressure with the green up against the edge to create that transition of green from a shaded version of green. And you can see the colored pencils are blending really well and smoothly transitioning from that darker shade of green. And I will continue to lessen pressure as I work my way toward the light source. I can reapply the cast shadow at the bottom. Now, the last section. This should be a little bit more fun. With any colors you choose, use the colored pencil gradations, warm gray technique, and overlapping color techniques to fill in this illustration. The goal is to give the figures depth through gradation and the use of implied light source. So when you look at illustrations based on a black and white ink design, what we're looking for is how do the values based on the light source create highlight, shadow, and whatever else it is that we're looking for. So for example, here's a finished version of this drawing. I looked at the areas of value based on these black shapes, which are the contour lines. Light source is established because I can see the cast shadow below the figure. So that means the light source is coming from the top. Where the values are based on the black contour lines, I've created areas of gradation where there's, let this gray shorts or the black shorts creates this highlight. I've left some areas of highlight and created gradation going from dark to light, and it has to follow the contours of the form. The skin tone's the same thing. I used a few different skin tone color pencils to create the values in the skin to make it appear as if the skin itself, the shoes, the socks, they all have gradation in highlight. So I could use any color, as I'd said. Maybe on the shirt, since it's a darker shirt, I might use this lighter color. So up against these black shapes here, what I need to do is I need to look at the gradation. In this case, I'm going to press hard up against these dark areas of black. kind of in and around them. I'm not covering over the black because that's already established. Now, as I work my way up to this highlight area, I need to do the same thing that I did in this section in creating that transition. So I'm going to lessen pressure and create highlight, working up to what might be just a 0 value up against the top of the shoulders here. Now, you can use any color, but it's all about adding and subtracting pressure. All right, here's a light area of the shirt because it's up against the light source at the top, and I'll transition this blue out again as I work my way up in a gradation out to this white. So the darkest areas I'm adding pressure, and as I work my way to the lighter values, I'm just lessening the pressure. Light source. Now right up against there you can see there's a distinct shadow with this contour line. So I'm pressing a little bit harder up against that. And then as I work my way down, again I'm further from the light source. I can use variations of gradient, lights and darks, just to create some punches of highlight where there might be some. Like right in here there might be a little bit of a lighter value. And I want to really give this character depth and 3-dimension by using the gradient technique. Now, I haven't done the warm gray technique on this because the shirt itself is pretty dark. So where I might get to some of the warm gray techniques, I might use them on some of the other shaded areas in the forms. So I'll get there when I get there. All right, let's say the shorts here are, a certain color. I'll go with brown. All right. Again, same thing. I'm picking up a light source here. This contour right here is dark, so I can put a dark value in there. And then I'm going to use the same gradient technique. Lessen the pressure as I work my way off of the dark areas and create areas of highlight. Now, where can I use the warm gray technique? I could use the warm gray technique. Let's say this girl's wearing jeans, all right? And if I put some warm gray in the contours around the legs, because the light source is coming from the top. I could do it down here to create a little bit of a shade between the legs. Again, any edges of separation where things overlap, I need to make sure that I'm following the light source and trying to create interesting edges of separation. So I'm putting in some of that warm gray, maybe along the bottom of the pant leg here, maybe a little bit of a warm gray technique where some of these little contours are. Kind of creating a gradation and transition there, maybe a little bit here on some of these dark spots below the hip. All right, put a little bit of that warm gray in. And now if I go in with a jeans, a denim color, and I overlap that with medium pressure, see how it's creating that shaded version of that blue. And again, as I work my way up to the top, so I'm burnishing over top of the warm gray technique. A little bit of pressure. And slowly transition the values to create a highlight as I work my way to the top of the pant leg. I'm also following the contours of the forms there. See how it's creating those shaded areas of the fabric. Coloring this in to be a solid color. I'm looking at the contours given to me by the edges of separation, the contour lines there, and I'm slowly building the gradients up to a highlight. May or may not be a full 0 value. It might just be a 1 value of the color. All right, but that's going to give the form more depth and dimension. So I could continue that with the rest of the forms. Think about skin tones too. In your set or in the sets that I have or the bin in the room, I can look for a variety of skin tones that might give me a better overall look. All right, with a variety of skin tones, colored pencils, you can see I've got yellows in here, I've got some tans, I've got some peaches, I've got some medium browns. The goldenrod color is a really good one to work with in picking up some of these areas here. All right, down through those values. And you can see how it's really just creating an overall interesting representation of color and giving the forms strong three-dimensional depth.